We rolling now?
We're rolling. How you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing good. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
How'd the boys do out and about?
Well, my older son did not want to go trick-or-treating because he's, too cool. But my younger one still very much thought or thinks that the concept of getting a whole mountain of free candy is well worth the investment. So, yeah, we went out and he dressed up as Men in Black.
Nice.
Well, he and his buddy were supposed to be two Men in Black, but evidently, the other boy was a ghost, so he was the haunted businessman, or Men in Black, something like that. But the funniest thing, I guess, was that when I was in high school, this was a very long time ago in the 80s, I was on the debate team, and I had a briefcase, and I'm a pack rat. So I still have that briefcase, and so he used it as his candy bag, and you would not believe how many people were like, "Oh my gosh, look at the briefcase!" Probably because they haven't seen one in 20 years, but
right.
It was a good time. Good time was had by all, and
fun.
I think he made himself a little sick eating candy on the way home.
Yeah, we had to
good.
cut off my boy's intake.
Yeah. So you went out too.
We did. We have a neighborhood group. It's become an annual tradition. We have a neighbor who makes chili, and we go to their house, have chili, then go trick-or-treating around the neighborhood. My boy's not that interested. He's 12. His costume was, he had just a white t-shirt, and we Sharpied on it, Air 404, costume not found, which he thought was awesome.
That is a great geeky costume.
We went around a couple streets, and the rest of the crew he's 12 and getting close to this is no longer cool. So the rest of the crew kept going, and he was like, I'm done, Dad. I got enough. Let's go home. So we split off from the pack and went home.
So did anybody get his t-shirt and laugh at it?
Yeah, there were a couple people that answered the door, answered the door. Great costume. I live in you either work for Intel or Nike neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there were a number of people who giggled or laughed at it. So
nice.
It was fun.
Success.
Free candy.
Free. Yep.
At least it didn't rain
good.
on us.
Oh, that's true. The weather was nice. It was a lovely evening.
It was decent.
Yeah, the roads were wet, so it must have rained today at some point in time. But so let's see. I had one bit of follow up from last week's discussion around the ad fraud scheme,
right?
Which we'll throw in. And I guess two pieces of this. Craig Silverman did a Ask Me Anything on Reddit yesterday, which I meant to go and read. I saw that it was going to happen, but I haven't had a chance to do it. So I haven't read that, but he did post a follow-up today that basically said, nobody seems to care that there's millions of dollars worth of fraud going on, and that a lot of the companies that he spoke with here, admitted to tens of thousands of dollars of, fraud that they're reimbursing, and, minimum look back windows for when the fraud occurred. And Google has admitted to something like $10 million of detected fraud. But I don't know. In my mind, this is the sort of thing that may ride quiet, because there's not a lot of people with incentives to come forward. I mean, Google's taken their cut, so what do they care? And
right.
Obviously the people whose ads are the people who are showing the ads, the app developers, legitimate app developers are still getting paid, and obviously the criminal ones are siphoning. But even from the purposes of the ad buyers, you'd think that they would be a little more motivated to make sure. Yeah. But there's also, the sort of human tendency to not want to admit fault, or to so long as the overall return is sufficient or not traceable and they've got their ad budget to spend, or, I don't know. I can see the situation where, so long as the boat isn't rocked too hard, status quo may continue. But I don't know. It also feels like the sort of thing that could simmer for, months and then like explode all over.
I guess I am surprised that the ad buyers are not more up in arms at this, because now all the data they have that I assume they're getting as part of the deal for selling the ads. Hey, we showed it to 10 million 18 to 35 year olds, or whatever your target market is. That data is completely worthless or completely untrustworthy. You would think you would want to be able to go to your executive leadership or whomever and have actual data. That's I was surprised by this title.
Yeah, the apathy. But that conversation is, hey, last month when I told you we had 35 million impressions, well, turns out 10 million of those were false, so it was really only 20 some million. So our dollars per impression were less, and it's, I don't know. I think there's definitely a human tendency to want to sweep bad news under the rug and move forward. So it's kind of one of those. It's almost like the like credit card fraud. How the banks cover it.
Yeah,
the end customers don't have to deal with it. The banks cover it, but it's small enough that they'll do work to avoid it, and especially to the point, to the extent that they're legally required to. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not in their best interest necessarily to make things so much more quote unquote secure that it's harder to use.
Well, yeah, as long as the cost to make it more secure or improve the system is more than the cost of just paying out the fraud.
Right.
What is your incentive?
Right, exactly. And that's why I think, of course, that the chips took so long to take root, that chip credit cards took so long to come to America, long after they were prevalent or required in Europe. And even the ones that did come to America weren't the chip and pin. They were the quote unquote chip and signature, which is less secure but more convenient. It's the convenience that is what kind of rules the roost.
Right.
So anyway, this is a story that I feel like we'll hear more about as time goes on, and it will either just, I don't know, this is a very wishy-washy prediction. It'll either just kind of simmer underneath the scenes at a low boil, or at some point in time it'll pop and like the whole industry will have a nice cleanup mess on its hands.
I just start paying out ad revenues in Bitcoin.
Sure, that's the ticket.
Well, I also have a piece of follow-up from a while back. We've talked about it a couple times, but just this last week, the Library of Congress and U.S. Copyright Office just proposed new rules that will give consumers and independent repair experts wide latitude to legally hack embedded software in their devices. So this is the right to repair stuff we have talked about occasionally in the past. The ability to repair your own stuff. You bought it, you should be able to repair it, and essentially now it is legal to hack DRM, the digital rights management.
That is a fantastic news.
Yeah, I think there's still probably some caveats. This is not the end of the road. It's just now you won't be prosecuted for doing it, I think, at this point. But
yeah,
it's not illegal to hack your own product that you bought. So
yeah, the DMCA is a garbage law. So I'm happy for anything that extends the ability for makers and I mean anybody who buys something, and it shouldn't be disposable. This is very good news. So we got a whole bunch of topics. So maybe we'll kind of hit a few relatively lightly. I don't know. It's been a big news week.
Yeah, just roll through a few.
Yeah. What do you got?
So everybody, I think, has seen CAPTCHA, right?
Yep.
It's the thing that you go to a browser, and originally what it would do was you would have to decipher the letters and numbers and type them out, right? You would go to a web page and it said, prove that you're a human, type out the letters that you see here. And half the time you couldn't really read them because various reasons. That was the first version of CAPTCHA. And then the most recent one was the, in these images, find all the cars or find all the trees. And
what has mountains? What has road signs?
Very annoying, right? Well, apparently Google has now released version 3 of their CAPTCHA stuff, which doesn't require any user interaction. So you don't have to find pictures or you don't have to type letters. It scans the website enough, observes the website enough to determine what is abnormal behavior, and detects bots and undesirable actions through behavioral interface. And then it gives the website a score of the behavior, and then the site admin can determine whether or not they can move their acceptability of the score up or down to then force the user to do something additional, like type in a code that they get text messaged, a text message pin code or something. They can decide how to react based on whatever the rest score is, which is different than others, which was kind of a Boolean operation. The user passed or failed. This
cool.
is interesting. This is very cool. I think that, hey, now I don't have to, it'll just kind of monitor my behavior. And if don't look like a bot, but it goes right back to last week. Was it last week? We talked about, the whole ad thing, right? Where they had purchased, they bought a bunch of ads and then built bots that mimicked user behavior. So now there's just going to be bots that are going to figure out how to mimic human behavior. It can't be that hard to then get around these new version 3s of CAPTCHA, potentially. So, anyways, yay on the one hand that the version 3 of the CAPTCHA no longer requires you to decipher letters, numbers, or pictures. It just is going to monitor behavior. But
man, that is a lot of activity
streaming up to Google
that Google will be monitoring.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I look forward to... I don't even know if I'm going to have a site tell me. I suppose the site doesn't even need to tell me.
No way.
It's using the CAPTCHA v3. It'll just prompt hey, we think you're a bot. Do something.
Right. You'll have to... well, I mean, I guess two thoughts for this. The first of which is you'd have to actually probably look at the site source to be able to see whether it's, including those tags. And then the second thing is I wonder what the implications will be for automated tools that scan the web. I mean, if they're honoring robot.txt, are they doing that?
Yeah.
Or I know we have some URL classification, automation that goes out and grabs sites and does things. So I'll be curious to see what the implications are for the quote unquote bot traffic.
Well, and I think you can really now, because most of the CAPTCHA stuff was also around things you wanted to secure, like signing up for an account. Because you didn't want to allow bots to sign up for accounts.
But I can imagine this might be interesting for you kind of tied this to ad protection, which this isn't doing, but we talked about last week in the mobile context. But you can imagine for the web context that page views that contain ads that are at a higher score as far as, real person, real, especially as they identify more about you, and those are worth more.
Right.
Interesting. It's all about ads. Yeah. It's
Yep.
all about ads. If you don't think it's about ads, you should try and figure out how it actually is about ads underneath the scenes.
All right. What do you got?
I got a couple. Okay, the first one though is about Google Home.
Yes.
So this is actually a vulnerability in the Google Home device, and you told me that you actually tried this.
Yes, I did.
I don't have a Google Home, so this was all theoretical from my standpoint.
Yeah, so I guess if you look at it as well, the Google Home and Google Home Mini, they have URLs that you can call that do things along the lines of, show me my Wi-Fi networks, show me my configuration, tell me what my name is. One of the things you can also do is force reboot the device. And you can also remove the Wi-Fi connection. These things all connect through Wi-Fi, and through a simple curl command, you can force the Google Home cylinder to reboot and lose its Wi-Fi connection. The only way to get it back on the network is to load up and the Google Home app, connect to it, and reset it up.
Ooh, really?
So, yeah. So it was kind of a fun little thing to poke around with. Simple commands. But I don't know so much if it's...
It's essentially unauthenticate. There's no authentication, and you have a REST API on the device that allows you to run some commands at least. Is this literally allowing them to do a reboot now?
Yes, essentially that's exactly what it's doing. And I think Google's response though was, well, it's only from internal, so you'd have to be inside that network. I think they said it was akin to if someone was in your house and they came and just pulled the power of your laptop. You can't stop someone from walking in your house and pulling the power of your laptop if they're inside your house. They can't pull the power plug if they're not inside your house. But still, it's odd from a company like Google that the ease of use, it was drop dead simple. It was not something that I had to dig around for and jump through hoops to do. It was type this, 40 characters and hit enter. Oh, hey, check that out. My Google Home went offline.
I do not agree. And I guess the ironic thing for me is that Google's the company that promulgates what's it called? The zero trust. Beyond Corp. Thank you. Yeah, where there's zero trust between any of the devices, right? They want every service to have its own, authentication, authorization. Don't assume that you have a corporate network with a nice crunchy exterior that is hard to get through, and then a nice chewy center where there's no security between devices and services. And I think the same thing will happen, or should be happening, in the home, where just because something's on my home network doesn't mean I want it to be vulnerable. Right. And I guess I don't think we haven't talked about this on this podcast yet, but those types of attacks are sometimes called evil made attacks.
Right.
Where, the notion is, okay, your house cleaner is a malicious spy for something. And so what can they do with 5 minutes of unfettered access to your device? So even if, and the notion there, I guess, is even if it is a authenticated system, if you have access to the hardware, then there's often something you can do, even in the span of a couple of minutes that will provide access externally. So, installing a sniffer or, literally replacing and reflashing firmware on a laptop can be done in just a few minutes with, if you already know the laptop brand and you've already kind of set up for it. But yeah, there's not reasonable to think that just because you're on the same network means we get to not worry about security. That's crap, Google. That's crap.
Yeah. So anyways, it was fun to just kind of play around with that and see how far it could go. I couldn't pull any, I don't know if it would count as GDPR or private user information. I could pull my Wi-Fi. I could pull the configuration of the device. So I have MAC address and, something that I have named it, the version numbers, public keys that it's using to connect out externally.
Oh, hey, this article even mentions Beyond Corp. Nice.
Yes.
Oh, well, see, I went to the same spot. Yeah, this is a great article. It's worth checking out for my first thing. The second thing that I thought was interesting this week was GitHub had a 24-hour degradation of service last week. Well, maybe a week and a half ago at this point. But the thing that happened this week was that they posted a post-incident analysis that had a ton of great info in here. And I guess it's not entirely security related, like directly, but it is related to availability, I guess, and the sort of steps that you have to take to ensure the availability are very much related to keeping your data safe, keeping your data secure. So this is a great article. I love it when companies are open with what happened, what the design is, what they were doing before, what happened, how they responded, what they did to repair, and then what their intents are going forward. And you kind of have to continue to judge. Obviously one incident at one point in time is just a point in time, but a couple incidents, will let you draw a line, and after 3 you could do a plane. So this was basically a SQL replication failure. So they lost connectivity, or the connectivity got too high between 2 of their data centers, and they encountered what I don't think this actually said was it, but effectively they had a split brain, which is when you have if you've got a distributed system and 2 of them think that they're in this case, if you have writes that can be going to 2 different data centers, and they're supposed to be cross-replicated, and if something happens, you can wind up with a situation where you have writes in both data centers, and they if they can't replicate back to each other, then what are you going to do? You can't really fail over to one or the other entirely, because you'll lose data. And so anyway, the what they did here, essentially was to degrade the service, because they wanted to kind of prioritize not losing customer data, right. Which is good for a service. So they took the service availability hit in order to maintain consistency, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. And then they then had to sort of work offline to restore from backups, reapply the log entries, and then they did say at the end that they did have those few entries from the one data center that they're essentially having to process almost manually by looking at if they can be applied without conflict, if so, doing it, and otherwise having to, actually literally contact customers and say, hey, we have inconsistencies. What do you want to do with this? Kind of. I mean, this is GitHub, so they're merge conflicts,
right?
Essentially. But and then the final comment that I wanted to pull out of this that I thought was particularly good is, so they said, there's a quote here that says, we will begin a systemic practice of validating future failure scenarios before they have a chance to affect you. This work will involve future investment in fault injection and chaos engineering tooling at GitHub. So
I love that line, that phrase right there. Fault injection and chaos engineering.
Right? So you're familiar with Chaos Monkey.
Why, yes, I am.
Yes.
Netflix.
So Netflix, yep. And that's an old concept at this point.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a stab and say that was 2010-ish that Netflix started. I don't know. I should really not take wild guesses on the air, but what Chaos Monkey is in a cloud distributed system. It is pretending you have a crazy monkey in your environment who's randomly shutting off services. So if your system, the notion is, if your system is designed to recover from failure, then you only can know that because or your confidence in that is how long it's been since you last had to execute those failure procedures. And
right.
And if that is the case, then the best way to have confidence that you can recover from failure is to be continuously recovering from failure. So they don't do this at their peak times necessarily. At least I seem to remember them saying that at one point in time. But it's essentially this is Netflix who developed Chaos Monkey, but lots of other people use this concept these days in cloud services. Is we should be able to survive and recover from any one of our services or instances going down, having a failure, without the rest of the system being impacted. So that might mean a new instance spins up, the load is distributed, it's, the failing system is taken out of the load balancer, whatever has to happen. You design your system such that if the Chaos Monkey, targets one of your instances and terminates it, it doesn't really matter. And the Chaos Monkey was the first, but Netflix then afterwards went and developed what they called their Simian Army, which I just, Chaos Monkey and the Simian Army. It's my next band name, something like that. But I love that whole concept of Chaos Monkey, and I find it interesting that I'm a little surprised GitHub wasn't already doing that, to be honest, because that seems like something that would have been right up their alley.
Well, real-time follow-up, Chaos Monkey was invented in 2011. So you're not a bad guess for wild guessing you did there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. I was thinking back to, sort of where we were and what I was working on when I first, started learning about that. So it was a while ago. So that anyway, I thought I mainly thought that GitHub write-up was worth the price of admission, so to speak, to talk about that one.
Cool.
It's nice. And then my last, the tiny piece of news, I guess, not so tiny, is the fact that IBM went and kind of bought something this week. Little acquisition, little $34 billion.
Yeah, and what was it, 20 some odd years ago when, is it 20 years already that Red Hat kind of kicked off the whole we're going to give away software for free but sell services idea?
Yeah.
With Red Hat Linux, that was the Linux you wanted.
Yep. No, I used Red Hat for a lot of years. This is, Red Hat 1, 2, 3, maybe through 4 or 5, I think. And then, that was long before CentOS, but obviously not that many years ago. They kind of divvied their efforts up there between the sort of the Red Hat Enterprise and the open distro. But anyway, so the link that I actually wanted to give to this article wasn't really about the purchase itself, but it's more about, so there's a guy I read on stratechery.com.
Great name.
Stratechery. Yeah. So Ben Thompson, and he has a great article here and about IBM's acquisition and sort of what the implications are. And I gotta say, he is pretty skeptical because, it really, if I were to, TLDR this article, it's kind of like Red Hat solves a problem that IBM has, and it's really up to IBM to figure out whether they can really pivot to take advantage of Red Hat. And also, does the problem that they're buying Red Hat to solve for IBM really solve a customer problem? Because that's what Ben's really talking about here with regard to Gerstner's sort of resurrection of IBM in the 90s. And Gerstner was able to sort of ride the service wave, pivot to services and really make it happen in the internet boom. And that really was a pivotal time. And I could see the argument that, there's still relatively low adoption of cloud in most businesses these days. Still on the, I think there might have been a quote in here I'm remembering of, only 20% market penetration, something along those lines, which, leaves a whole lot still to be done. But one of the points that I really resonates with me in this that, Ben mentioned was, the fact that with IBM kind of ditching its own cloud strategy and going onto a cloud abstraction layer where they've really seeded the cloud races is between Amazon, Azure, and Google. And if you use Kubernetes across those, you can, and they certainly aren't the first or the only one that are trying to kind of disintermediate or commodify. Sorry, that's probably the better way to say it. Commodify the cloud provider by saying, hey, whichever one's cheaper, we can run there. You just set up your containers, and we'll run them like this. That it's really to be seen. And I guess I don't remember this argument in this article, but my skepticism is probably more along the lines that the cloud services the cloud adoption is more about service adoption than it is instance or even container adoption. And so I think it's where the cloud providers are, really providing services, not just infrastructure, that, is where they're going to continue to have the advantage. And Ben, one of Ben's comments in here is that, IBM is essentially has to pay rent to them
Right.
You know, they're building a layer on top, which, you know, can't help but, you know, give them a, you know, a premium, means that there's a premium for that. And, you know, so maybe, but I'll remain a little bit skeptical. $34 billion is a lot of money, though. So you know, there's going to be some people really incented to make that work.
Succeed. Yeah.
And I you know, I gotta say, I saw this, I put it in the notes. I seem to remember that I got in the IPO for Red Hat.
Huh.
But back when I was like just out of college or something like that. So it was the sort of thing that I was like, yes, Linux on the desktop is totally going to be in 1998. It's going to be the year. and I was all in. And of course that has not happened for 20 years, but, but next year will be the year of Linux on the desktop.
But it was preceded many years before that by Unix FreeBSD on the desktop.
Yeah.
In the form of Mac OS X.
Yeah.
So I will say, you mentioned that you were Linux Red Hat 1.0. I was a FreeBSD guy.
Yeah.
From the early days. So Mac, when they switched to OS X, and FreeBSD as the underpinning Darwin.
Yes.
I felt vindicated.
Yes. Yes. No, it is lovely. It is lovely. I love the fact that I can, you know, I've got my VI and I use VI probably every day, which is not something that I probably, you know, 22-year-old me probably thought would be the case, but, hey, still works.
All right. So we pop into something fun.
All right. Something fun.
So my something fun is actually something you and I have talked about a lot.
Oh,
now
I'm
on
so
episode
bad.
47 of the podcast. Harvest Business View, and I just did it. I've been so self-conscious about it because of this when I knew this article was coming. Harvard Business Review had an article called How to Stop Saying and you know.
Yes.
It's a great little article.
Yes.
Giving you tips, tricks, things to get you to stop saying that. But the something fun part that I wanted to pull out was more some of the facts that they brought out, some of their research, the guy who wrote the article, his research. He says the optimum filler words, the ums, the ahs, the you knows, those are important and helpful to pull your audience with you as long as you don't overuse them.
Mm-hmm.
And the optimum frequency is about one filler word per minute.
Wow.
But the average speaker uses 5 filler words per minute, one every 12 seconds. So long pauses are not a bad thing.
Well, especially if you use a podcast reader or a podcast player that automatically clips out the pauses. Yes.
Thank you, Overcast.
Yes, we appreciate that.
The other fact that I wanted to pull out that I thought was fun was, according to their research, they found that the average professional speaks at a rate of 150 words per minute, but there's other research that shows that we think somewhere in the range of 400 words per minute or up to 1,500 words per minute. And so because of this discrepancy, I think most people who have ever had to do any kind of public speaking, or even if you're just talking or you have kids, you're like, stop talking, let your brain has not caught up to your mouth, you know, or the inverse of that, actually. The research shows because of this discrepancy, when you're giving a speech, your perception of time is often distorted, and what feels like an eternity in your mind is actually just a few short seconds. So
yeah,
instead of using filler words, actually pausing and not saying anything is actually better.
I actually haven't had a chance to read that article, but I know it. And I caught myself saying a number of times on this. And I know when I edit, I cut out a lot of ums. so long as
I do too.
So long as they're not, connected to other words, which is the worst when me or you, and
Yes.
we both do it, we talk and then we make noise to lead into a word. So this
right.
and there's no gap in between, and those could be harder to tidy up. But okay, well, that's
the other
fun.
fact that I said the other fact that I gotta go pull it out really quick. The other fact, how to practice. So the way to get around saying the ums and ahs and all the filler words is to do practice. The optimal ratio of preparation to performance is 1 hour of practice for every minute of presentation. So if you are doing a 30-minute presentation, you need to have 30 hours of practice. Anyways, but at the very least, one of the guys said, one of the people they talked to said, one of the communications experts said a speaker should have at least 3 full complete run-throughs before stepping in front of an audience. And I bring this up because you and I both have done presentations. I was down in LA at the I was down in LA at Mobile World Congress doing a presentation on blockchain.
Yeah.
You've done a number. So we were just at Empower a couple weeks ago, our Empower event, doing a panel and doing a presentation. So if you have to do presentations in front of audiences, at least get 3 run-throughs and read this article if you want tips and tricks on how to get rid of filler words.
Cool. I'll have to look at maybe I will get better as time goes by. All right. Last something fun. My something fun for this week is a article about AI reinforcement learning. The reason this was interesting was there's been a number of research papers and algorithms that go on for having a machine learn how to play a game or how to play games, and then optimizing via various methods. So this article was using something called reinforcement learning, which is basically, you don't have to have a trained data set. You just have to set up your rewards in such a way that the rewards encourage the behaviors you want to encourage, and discourage with either negative or lower positive rewards the behaviors you want to discourage. And so this is a research paper that basically used the fact that it wanted to reward curiosity as opposed to like local score maximization. So So this is basically saying that it's more interesting to explore more of the environment, and to where the outcome of the next step is less predictable, got more rewards than if the outcome was very predictable and repeatable. And so anyway, this is an interesting paper, and interesting to think about, at least at least at the boundaries of machine learning at the moment. It's how do you set up the incentive system, which, to be honest, is also has to do with managing humans. If I guess anytime I think about incentives, I go back to either Freakonomics or Peopleware, which is an old book on about humans and how they maximize whatever measurements you put in front of them. But this paper I thought was particularly interesting, and the actual outcome of this was that this is the first algorithm that achieved better than average human performance on a particular game that has been troublesome for many many other systems over the last couple of years. So it's called Montezuma's Revenge. But anyway, so this paper on reinforcement learning with prediction-based rewards is the name of the paper. And I just thought this was interesting. This was cool. This is my something fun for the week.
I liked the Mario. So they had the agent play Mario, and I thought it was kind of cool that just by tweaking the incentives, instead of Mario zipping through and never getting killed and going to the end, it discovered the secret rooms, defeated the bosses, because the incentives were different. I thought it was kind of, yeah. I haven't read the entire paper. I just kind of skimmed through and found things that I thought were interesting to read, and the Mario one was interesting enough. And I was like, all right, I got to go back and read the whole thing now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's right though, and you could think of that too. I mean, even humans. Some humans just want to get through, and some want to explore the whole thing. And really, it does depend on, what's the desired outcome for this particular. What are you developing the automation for? All right. Shall we call it a night?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, go vote.
Oh, yep. Please
go vote.
Go vote.
If you're in the U.S., go vote.
Exactly.
If you're in Oregon, send in your ballot if you haven't already.
Yep.
All right.
Good plan. All right. Happy Halloween again. I'll talk to you later.
Have a good night, John.
Bye.
Bye.